Welcome to Manhood Race Culture Interactive tonight. It is May 27th, 2021. And tonight we have assembled our community together to discuss an issue that for me has been dogging me for the longest time. Literally, as Malcolm once said, that he is to understand his life, one needs to look at not only his life, but his father's life and his father's father's life. So this issue has dogged me for lifetimes before I arrived on this planet. And the topic tonight is going to be the pursuit of justice, a discussion of the failure of Black leadership strategies to secure justice for Black America. And as I said earlier, this issue has dogged me for quite a while. Um, and although I didn't have the words to articulate it, um, I can tell you for sure the phraseology, the statement that in many ways gave me those words, and it flows from the greatest mind that the American Academy ever produced. Okay, bar none. I will put this guy up against anyone. I know a lot of people like to call on for the 20th century Albert Einstein being the most formidable mind that was created by the American Academy, but they forget that Albert Einstein was not created by the American Academy. Albert Einstein was German and was Jewish, and he was actually inside of Nazi Germany when and once again, this is one of my pet peeves of all time. I will call it what it is. When the Jewish Holocaust occurred, I do not allow them to trademark the word Holocaust as if they own it. When the Jewish Holocaust
Right.
occurred, Albert Einstein was actually inside of Nazi Germany. The individual that I'm referring to is William Edward Burghardt Du Bois. And I honor his spirit and all the way down to the idea of how he wanted his name pronounced. Many people have tried to say Dubois, but Du Bois himself says, I'm not a Frenchman, so I prefer the anglicized enunciation of my name. But back to the statement that Du Bois made. Du Bois says the problem of the 20th century will be the problem of the color line. If there's anything that I can find issue with Du Bois's writings and his words, and I made that homage to his home in Accra, Ghana, many times. The only issue I have with Du Bois's stuff is quite simply he didn't stretch it far enough. He talks about the 20th century, that the color line being the problem of the 20th century. I would extend it into the new millennium, that the color line, the problem of race is still with us. And as I said, it's a problem that dogged my life, my father's life, both of my grandfather's life, one being from Memphis, Tennessee, the other one being from Stone Mountain, Georgia, their father's life and their father's father's father. You get the point that I'm going at. This has been the sticking point for the Black existence, regardless of we're talking about man, woman, or child, race. So, what I'd like to start today's show off with is quite simply a simple question that I'll pose to all of you. And if you are comfortable with answering it, responding, or what have you, feel free to jump in. If not, you can stay with us and remain silent. Um, the question that I have is quite simply this: why hasn't the issue of race been solved by this litany of brilliant oraticians, Black leaders that we've had? We can start on the Amistad with St. Q. We can move to David Walker. We can move to Mariah Stewart, Douglas, Washington, Du Bois, Garvey, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm, King, and you get my point. Okay. Why has Black leadership, the strategies that have been implemented by Black leaders, failed? to uplift our people out of this oppressive position. The floor is yours. Anyone?
Doc, I think that because I've been thinking about this subject for a while, I think the problem when we look at what the leaders offered, um, and the most majority of them offered a better way to integrate into a society that's bent on doing you wrong. But when we look at Marcus Garvey and what he wanted to do was something different. When you look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what he wanted to do was something different. And I think that when you judge the leaders by what they actually produced and what their followers have done, um, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's plan was to be in America, but yet be separate from America. And during that time period, it worked, and to a degree, it still works today, except for it lacks that last piece of black nationalism, which is you controlling the politics. And so, if you don't control the politics, don't matter how much land you have, don't matter how much businesses you have, don't matter where you live at, the enemy still can exert power and control over you. So I think we have to take from each what did work and then put it into a new way. So, and I think with Marcus Garvey, by them deporting him out, and he not really having a strong representative to hold everything together, is one of the things that helped to destroy his movement. Um, and I don't think honestly, when we really deal with even that issue of separation, I don't think that our people have gotten to the point where they understand the value in the idea of separation. I don't think for the most part they understand that. So that's how I would answer that question. I rest my mic.
All right, thank you. That was Brother Maurice Muhammad speaking. Sister DC Price, you have your hand up.
Hey, so I'll make a couple of statements and then tell a very short story. First, you have to know you're a slave. Harriet Tubman said she could have freed hundreds of thousands or more if they had known they were slaves. All right. The other statement that I want to make is that our leaders have uh, really gotten uh, into a situation where they uh, are afraid of having what happened to Martin Luther King happen to them. That's just my opinion. You know, Martin Luther King was very instrumental in moving us steps forward in this country. And of course, they killed him because they said he had too much power. That, yeah, he was gonna, get some stuff done. Caucasian America hates, hates, and the true definition of hatred. Caucasian America hates the thought of African Americans being equal. All right. Now, my story is for all of my life, I knew my father. I was in a two-parent home. My father worked with a lot of white folks, and he did, some admirable things for the time he was working. He worked for the post office, and he was a national shop steward, and got pictures of him with President Carter, whatever. I lost all respect for my dad when he came to visit me right after I closed my house in Georgia. what caused me to lose respect for him was that my nosy neighbor next door, white woman, saw his car, saw his out of state tag. And of course, she wanted to know what was going on. So she came and caught us in the driveway and kind of wedged her way in the house and talked to my dad and whatever. And when she left, my father looked at me and said, "I'm proud of you." I said, "Why are you proud of me, Dad?" He said, "You got white people who like you. And that's better than anything you could ever have." That was it for me. It broke my heart. I lost respect because my father valued a Caucasian person as being some affirmation that I was doing the right thing, or, you know, I don't even think he ever told me. He didn't tell me when I graduated, high school, graduated college, did this, did he didn't even tell me he was proud of me for, building my house. He told me he was proud of me because I had white people that liked me. And I I just I- that was it for me. It changed everything about him. A couple years later he died. I'm you know, I wish that we had enough time to reconcile, uh, or at least me getting my respect back for him. But that's how it went. I yield the mic. That's my story.
Wow, Sister DC, thank you for that, for the glimpse into your life. I would like to pick up on something that you mentioned that is not dealing with your father. And I'm going to present this to the entire group. And as always, jump in as you see fit. My question is, how do you become a leader within the Black movement today? Um, I've studied Black intellectual thought for a good portion of my academic career, and I've seen the way that many of our leaders are basically organically grown. Okay, I see Booker T. Washington. I saw Du Bois. Even all the way down to Daddy Grayson and Father Divine. Um, so the question that is flowing definitely from what Sister DC presented to the group is, how do you become a leader of the movement within Black America today? And that's once again presented to the entire group.
And I think you become one of the ways that you become a leader is you take it. We can't wait for some body to anoint you as this is who you are. If you believe that you have something, that you know the right direction, then you take it. You know, there's not going to be, if you're really for the upliftment of our people, they're not going to say, "Come on, sit down at the table, and so we can
Okay,
crown you."
okay. Who is they?
The powers that be. And when I say the powers that be, I mean white America that run things, and the Black America who wants to still be the brother and the lover of white America. See, those like here's a good situation. I went to one of uh, the national, the Black representatives in DC, and they have their gathering every year. And I went there. I was in the organization, and we were dealing with a little girl, Black girl, that was sex trafficked in DC. And so I went there, and my turn to get up and speak, and I spoke, and I started going to the other sessions. And those people that were up there, the DNC, the Reverend Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, this type of crowd. And they were talking all this foolishness about what we need to do and how back in the day. And so when they opened it up for anybody to say something, I got up there to say something. And I really told them that they should be ashamed of themselves. Keep pushing this same old ideology that doesn't get us anywhere. It doesn't move the needle, not one bit. But they want to do this because if you go this way, then you're gonna find wealth, because you're gonna do the things that please your master, and you're never going to get your people free. Now, of course, they threw me out of there, but those people sitting there, they heard exactly what I had to say. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all of them, they heard exactly what I got to say. And our people have to realize that change is not going to come from anybody with that type of mindset. It's just not going to happen. So we have to be bold, just as those who started America. That was a bold step to say we're going to be free. To hell with what the king say. This is what we have determined. We have to use that same ability and say, this is what we have determined. And we have to be willing to go to war with anybody who comes against what we have decided to build. That's the way we have to be. And we can't compromise. We cannot compromise. We compromise too much. So we have to be very stringent, and this is where it is. And then we make them understand this is where it is. You either get down or you're gonna lay down. Those are the only two options you got.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that, Brother Muhammad. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. All right, welcome back to Manhood Race Culture Interactive. We're talking about the idea of Black leadership and why the strategies that Black leaders have utilized thus far has not resulted in liberation for Black America. Picking up the discussion with what Brother Muhammad just said, I would like to ask those who are assembled here a simple question. Could you please name me who the Black leaders are at the present moment of Black America? Who would you say? And when I ask about leaders, I'm talking about that the average person on the streets would know. Who are our national leaders? Who has the fame and the infamy of a Brother Malcolm, of a Dr. King, of a Huey P. Newton? Okay, who are those people right now? Brother Omar, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And good evening, everybody. I think that is the issue. I was thinking before you asked the question that if we all were asked to write or name 5 leaders, we would come up with probably 25, 30 different people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because I do think that we need that type of broad and deep leadership. But when I think about leadership in the States, I think about Stacey Abrams. And I don't get far past that, right? I think of some of the folks who've been in the game for a long time, and I'm beginning to wonder the value of their leadership, and in some cases, the sincerity of their leadership. I feel that there's a disconnect between the people that I think about when I think about leaders, and those are people who are associated around DC and spend a lot of time in that arena.
Okay, people like whom?
Politicians, elected officials. I don't really know them by name. I don't keep track with them. I don't. But so. And that's in terms of national leadership. I do recognize that there are people on the ground who are practicing leadership every single day in our community, right? Who are unrecognized, who are unnoticed, who are unacknowledged, who are who doing heroic and just loving work, and providing leadership for our young men and women. And they do it in a lot of walks of life. But just in terms of the national level, I can't think of an individual or an organization. And I'm open. I'm not that. I just don't see the organized effort that it's going to take. And then I think it's about, I listen to folks who talk about the economy and economics and the power the black dollar. And I happen to believe that until we become seen as, until we organize economically, right, and support one another in areas of supporting each other, our businesses, and not necessarily pooling our resources, but supporting people who support us. So there's an economic issue, I think, that is absent in this conversation. And I'm mumbling right now, so I yield the floor.
Okay, thank you for that, Brother Omar. Anyone else? Who, when you're asked the question of who are the national level leaders for Black America, who comes to mind?
Well, for me,
Our
all right,
Vice President, Madam Vice President Harris, and the sacrifices that she has made as a person of color to descend to those ranks. And then I think about the killings of our sons, our Sandra Bland's, our Trayvon Martin's, and our daughters. And I think about the three leaders of the Black Lives Matters movement as well, because that movement has spread from one single state to a global spectrum. And although they are not men, we all know that Black men are oftentimes described and related to by the women that they stand beside. And so I just want to name those.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that contribution.
Thank you.
Brother Muhammad, you were jumping in?
yes, sir. On the national level, we have, of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Reverend Barbara. You have those. You also have, even though I hate to have this name slip out of my mouth, but if you ask those out there on the street, some will say Malik Zulu Shabazz, with the so-called New Black Panthers. Those are the ones that I know that some people will call in their name.
You know, we were looking at something on Tuesday on Brother Muhammad's show, and it was a Jada Pinkett red table, and I want to say that the young lady's name is Tamika Mallory, that she had on her show speaking, and many people have said that, well, she was trained and came up through Al Sharpton's organization, pretty much the exact same way that many people say that Umar Johnson came up through that Garveyite type of movement and what have you. I think that what I'm kind of recognizing when we're talking about who are the Black leaders within leaders within the Black community, that for 80% of them, their ascension or their coronation to a position of being a Black leader has come through some affiliation with a white power structure institution. I'm talking about CNN. I'm talking about MSNBC. I have this thing that I say behind closed doors, and I guess that I can debut it here publicly. And it is quite simply, you're no one until white America says that you're someone. And when you look at the ascension of so many quote unquote Black leaders, their platform is by and large a white platform. And I don't care what anyone says, you're not going to, and you instinctually know, unless you've made that decision that this will be your last time appearing on a national broadcast or at a major conference giving a keynote address, you know to tame down what it is that you're saying. That is, unless your organization is authentically Black and free. You get what I'm saying? And I think that we're looking at the development of national leadership cadres that are in many ways either beholden in some way to the white power structure or totally and absolutely and positively free. and able to speak their own mind. And we've all seen the difference between those types of from where your source of power comes from. If you're supported by a authentic, organic Black community, you're almost free to say whatever it is that you want to say. But if your message can only get out via CNN or MSNBC or, God forbid, Fox, there's going to be some tailoring and some tempering. And that tailoring and tempering is one of the things for me that leads me to question not necessarily your sincerity. Maybe the better way of looking at it is your ability to speak truth to power, especially when you're talking about that power structure being the thing that puts you on that stage. And I yield. Any response?
I think that going into different engagements and speaking on different topics, that you just have to allow the research
Okay,
to
who is they? Who's they?
going,
I always jump on my students when they say he, she, or they. Who's they?
going to present information, whatever topic that you're speaking upon, that
No,
you
I
should
mean, but who is they? When you say they, who are you talking about?
just speakers in general. Anytime that we open our mouth, it should be supported by research and not personal feelings, because we have to think about the multitude and the masses instead of ourselves, our self perspective upon things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But my question is once again the idea of okay, let's approach let's create a scenario. Let's say that you have been invited to appear on, I don't know, Ari Melber. Okay, you're going to be on MSNBC, Ari Melber, and you have a very strong position in regards to whatever the issue is. But you have also a recognition that this could be your big break of being a national spokesperson. Okay. That there's been some talk or some expectation that you could become a regular on the CNN, MSNBC circuit. What my question is, quite simply, is will you not say what you need to say 100% strong with the hope of additional appearances? And I think that it may be at that moment where where for some people, and I'm not indicting any person, but for some people, can you see can you see them tempering what it is that they would potentially say to that national audience?
That goes back, James, to what I said at the top. Folks are afraid to speak truth to power because white America stamps them out, they disappeared, they're killed, whatever. White America, the biggest threat to white America is having unity and a strong leadership within African Americans. And then we don't help because we don't support each other, not the way that we supported each other back in the 60s, in the 70s, etc. We don't support each other. We infight so much that we can't get the cohesion. We can't be seen as a formidable representation because everybody is so afraid of somebody being more powerful. For example, I think it was when Mike Brown or George Foreman got killed. Al Sharpton showed up. Jesse Jackson showed up, but neither of them would be in the same place at the same time because there's that friction between the two. They don't agree on some things. They have a history, you know? So nobody has to worry about either of them becoming the voice of Black America or the leader of unity, because they can't even get along with each other. I yield.
I agree with
No
that
doubt.
wholeheartedly. One of the things that is consistently popping up, Brother Omar mentioned it, Brother Patrick mentioned it as well. The idea of an economic component. Um, if you go back and look at Marxian theory, Karl Marx refers to this population at the bottom of society as the lumpen proletariat, and they're the prolats. You'll hear a lot of the more radical wings. They won't call them the lumpen proletariat. They'll refer to them as the prolats. And what they're saying about the prolats, well, what Marx says is that one has to be very, very careful about forming their organization in any significant way upon the prolats, because the prolats are so poor and their economic misery is so substantial that they're not able to stave off being bought off, basically. And so turning the conversations towards this idea of economic sustainability, of flourishing economically, can we say, and I'm just dealing with leadership, I'm not dealing with the entire Black America, I'm dealing with our leadership tonight. Are Black leaders too poor, too desirous of power that can be bestowed upon them by other entities that may not have the collective of Black America's interest at heart? Are Black leaders too poor to be strong for Black folk? And that's for the group.
I don't think they're too poor in the terms of monetary wise to be strong. I think it's more of an internal commitment to be strong. And just as you were saying before about, whether they will make a decision, whether I'm going to cow down my message, water it down so MSNBC can have me completely on and my pocket's going to grow, or am I going to be committed to what's right, to what my purpose is? And see, when we have, and this is a major problem that we've suffered from, is because we've had so-called leaders that are not committed to the mission. They're not committed to our people. They're following the dollar. And when you follow the dollar, you ain't gonna get nothing but that. But the people condition will never change. And so even when we look at, Byron Allen in his lawsuit that he's filed against McDonald, he's doing the same damn thing that the Southern Democrats did when they came up with the 3-5 compromise. He's doing the exact same thing. Ain't no difference. But who wanna be able to say that don't want favor from Byron Allen? See, they all want favor for somebody. Now, if I was there, I'd say exactly what I gotta say, because I don't want favor for none of them. Because I know, I understand what my life is for. And so I live that life that way. I've gotten people out of jail that's wrongly convicted. I've helped more of our people, made a bigger impact than any of these national leaders. I've done, my resume speaks better than any of theirs, of what I've actually done. The thing is this, because when I spoke at George Washington University, and these white women were running up to me asking me, will I be their advocate? Will I speak out on their behalf? And I had to tell them, no, I'm not going to do it, because I knew y'all going to pay me. And if I get addicted to that money, then that may cause me to compromise the truth that I got to speak on the behalf of my people. So I made a conscious effort right then and there when I was really dirt poor, and told them, no, I ain't gonna do it. But if I'd have went down that road financially, now I'd be in a way better situation that I'm in. But I don't think that I would have been able to speak the way that I speak nor accomplish the things that I have accomplished. So the leadership has to be committed to the people, and they have to understand that God gave us this talent, not that we can serve the cracker, but that we serve our people and move our people where we gotta go and stop compromising. Now rest my mind.
Okay, for those who have just joined, arrived in the community, what we're talking about tonight is the pursuit of justice, a discussion of the failure of Black leadership strategies to secure justice for Black America. Just wanted you to be on message with what it is we're discussing. Okay, anyone else? You can jump right in. The issue that is on the floor, Brother Patrick, go right ahead.
Off of what Brother Muhammad said, I think that a lot of times when we go forth to do work, that we have to look at Kimberly Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality and decide what intersection are we going to speak from. Am I going to consider my position as male when I go forth, or am I going to consider my Blackness? Am I going to consider my religious or social economic conditions? And I think that a lot of times will decide whether we take different gigs or not.
You know, one of the questions that that faces us when we're facing those ideas of intersectionality is quite simply, are we able to separate those things? Are we able to tease those things out? I know that who's the sister? It's not Darlene Clark Hine, Paula Giddings. Okay, and I know that's Regina Al Hassan, one of her favorites. Paula Giddings actually got angry at a question that was when and where I enter. Yes, ma'am. She got angry at a question that was posed to her. We were talking about the idea of the construct that W.E.B. Du Bois presented in The Souls of Black Folk, where he talks about this duality. And he says that one, only wishes that they can be both Black and an American without having, each one canceled out. Giddings says it's impossible to separate those two things. When you're talking about the idea of intersectionality, how can Black women tease out their race versus their gender? And that's sort of one of the issues that we're still dealing with and grappling with. And I'll say it this way: I would never want to be in the room where that question was presented to Black women. Are you, which is the larger part of you, your gender or your race? Let's keep going, people.
I guess
I'll hop in here.
Sister Vernell has her hand up. Go ahead, Sister Vernell.
Yeah, that's I'm right there. There's no separating out. For me as a Black woman, there's no separating out my race from my gender. That's just not possible for me to do, because anything that is specifically pertaining to woman or womanhood, I am looking at that through a Black lens. And things pertaining to Blackness, I'm looking at that through a woman's lens, from a woman perspective. So you can't really do that. And I know that it has been attempted in the past. I know during the civil rights movement, Black women kind of like put those gender issues to the side for the purpose of racial progress, and that was not necessarily the best thing for them to do. That's just like asking Black men to separate out their manhood from their race. Like, how can Black men divide, themselves between Black and man? You have to consider people's wholeness.
All right, thank you for that, Sister Vernell. We're going to take a slight break right here, and we will be right back. All right. right, welcome back to Manhood Race Culture Interactive. We are having a dynamic discussion that is going in several directions. Sort of a refresher as we started off talking about the idea of Black leadership and why Black leadership has failed to, in many ways, liberate Black folk. I'm not sure if it was Brother Muhammad or Brother Carlton who was up next, since neither one of them raises their hand.
Go ahead, Brother Carlton. I'll go after you.
Appreciate it, Brother Muhammad. Thank you, brother. I think that intersectionality comment, this is my thing. The rules of engagement have to come first from our own survival. I mean, that's the rule. That's what the rules of engagement. I mean, all that stuff sounds nice and and very fine, in intellectual discussion. But unfortunately, the rules of engagement society tells me my Blackness has to come first. That you're not gonna, so when a cop sees me, they don't see an intellectual opera lover who's a Catholic and all this and very involved in church. They see a Black man, and particularly they see Black. So unfortunately, the rules of engagement tell me my Blackness has to come first. My Blackness must be first. And so all the other things are pretty much inconsequential, unfortunately, to me. Also, too, I don't know if this has been said. I got on here late. Excuse my tardiness, but we talk about Black leadership. Well, hell, what is the Black agenda? What are our 10 to 14 points that we're going to hold Black leadership accountable for? Brother Muhammad's organization, I know what they stand for, and I know the rubric to judge Brother Muhammad's organization by. I said, so these are our aims, these are our goals, this is what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. I have yet to see besides Brother Muhammad's organization, I've yet to see very, very many people have a unified Black agenda. So we should be free. We need to be liberated. Well, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that look like as a form of policy? And so, because we're not really we're not grading anybody on an object. I know I'm a math guy. I'm a science guy. I need to be able to grade you on a certain objective. You had these objectives for you. Did you accomplish that objective? You made it here. You missed it here. And I think we as Black folks have yet to still put together a coherent, logical, and meaningful, and impactful agenda of what we demand. Not what we ask for, not what we need, what we demand in order for us to participate adequately in this so-called American experiment. And with that, I'll yield back.
All right, Brother Muhammad, go right ahead.
And I'll just double down on what Carlton said. At the end of the day, we're Black first. Period, point blank, and there's no way around that. And once we understand that, then we should be able to understand real power. And I teach people all the time when we say speak truth to power. Power is us, is the people, because we're the ones that got to send them bastards in the office. So if we wake up to what our duty is and what we should do, we can rearrange everything. Everything can be rearranged if we wake up and understand what our power really is, what our duty and responsibility really is. But if we don't do that, we'll continue letting these demons do whatever the hell they want to do. And we're mistakenly thinking they are the ones that really have the power, when it's the people that have to put them in that office. It is the people that have to crown them. Okay, you the leader, because we voted you the leader. So this is what you're going to do. We have to turn that thinking around so that people can really understand where power resides. And I rest my mic.
All right, thank you for that, Brother Muhammad. Sister Regina,
Yeah,
Research
so
Pro, please stand forward.
yes, sir, Research Pro. But to kind of piggyback off on that, so the question you asked about like poverty, impoverished leadership, and being own leadership that's being owned and beholden to money and people that have money and resources. So I'm just kind of thinking about that and wondering if that's a generational thing. And so sometimes I wonder if it's not even just about the money, but is it a mindset of lack and a mindset of we're lacking something, whether or not that's access or equality or whatever, we're lacking something. We're asking for permission, for rights, we're asking for something, or we're even demanding something that implies that you're hoping someone will agree with you. And to Brother Maurice's point, it seems like there needs to be a shift in mindset and understanding that the way you show up politically is not about asking for anything. The way you show up is, here is my value, and you're going to respect my value. And that's just that. There's no negotiating. There's no, it's a different mindset. And I wonder for us as Black people, is that generational? Because so many of the leaders that we have now did grow up in poverty. Like they grew up in like for real poverty. And so there certainly was that expectation of gaining and growing and getting out of a bad situation and being willing to do nearly whatever it takes to not be eating beans out of a can, you know, and to not be reliant on government assistance, you know. And so when we think about our leaders now, and are they, did they come through the Depression era? Did they come through, you know, the 60s and 70s where Black people really were more as a whole economically challenged? So I'm curious if we will see that shift with a new generation of leadership that hasn't experienced that type of widespread poverty, you know, to make. So I think a lot of times poverty, we make the mistake that poverty is synonymous with Black culture, but it's not. So just kind of curious about that. Just putting that out there.
You know, your commentary made me smile. A couple of days ago, I was reading Elaine Locke and trying to get ready for the approaching semester, summer semester, and trying to figure out what I would do with my students as far as that period of post-World War I prior to the Great Depression. Of course, I'm going to talk about the Harlem Renaissance, but it forced me to revisit Elaine Locke's construct of the new Negro, that there is now a new Negro on the scene who is no longer Southern bound. This new Negro is now in the cities. He's not necessarily so petrified about speaking because he's physically isolated on a plantation. Very interesting idea that you're presenting there. Is this current generation talking about the Black Lives Matter, talking about all of these sort of ascending and surging Black voices who, and I will say this, you know, as someone who remembers when there was no internet, that you can say whatever you want to about the internet. It has allowed for voices to get out that would have never been heard before, allowed for people to rally together that would have never known of each other and rally together. You know, me and Brother Maurice, we've been doing these shows for over 10 years now, probably, and have never physically been in the same place. You know, keep in mind, it's possible for you to cut a record with Tupac or Maru Shakur. And, you know, my brother is with the Lord now, and you can record with him. So this internet, and do we have a new generation that is going to present something to the establishment that it can handle, not in a usual oppressive way? Thank you for that, Sister Regina. What do you guys think? Are we on the cusp of the arrival of a new Negro that is breaking all the rules and is not, as Regina put it, is not afraid, doesn't have a Great Depression era being starved out, being locked out and blacked out issue in their subconscious?
I'll hop in here. The only thing is that we are on the cusp of it, but here's the issue, though. You know, will that old guard move out? Pass the baton on, and that's really always been the issue. I mean, you know, there's always been a, you know, you've got people like right now. You've got old guy in South Carolina. What's his name? Goodness gracious, I'm going blank. God, he's 80. Yeah, 81 years old up there, still in Congress. I mean, Have you not passed that on to somebody else? I mean, there's nothing wrong with leadership and your wisdom, but we have to understand that we cannot be prisoned and shackled by a personality of style leadership. It needs to be based on issues and righteousness. And unfortunately, I think we as Black folks get caught up in that. It was for them it was FDR or it was JFK. It was a leader that they looked to, or MLK or Malcolm X. They look to a leader, not to the issues. And I need us to be a faceless movement. A faceless movement. The issues should be the star of the show, not the personality, not the person. And unfortunately, that is going to be a major source of conflict between my generation and my grandparents' generation, or even my parents' generation to some extent as well. Because I really don't give a damn who you are and how much I like you or not. I care about where you stand on the issues. If you're not right on the issues, we can't work together. There's nothing for us here, if you're not going to be right on the issues. So, and I don't care what you look like or what you sound like or how you talk or how you make me feel. As long as you're right on the issues, we can work together. We can build alliances together. And I don't think my parents' generation especially feel the same way. And so that's going to be a major source of friction for us. And also too, we don't need traditional sorts of media. We can go around the media. We can use Instagram, TikTok, and things like that to get our message out there, and be confident in our message and be very clear in our message. That we don't need traditional sources of media to say what we want to say. So you know what? In some ways, maybe we're a little bit more liberated in what we can say. And with that, I yield back.
I hear what you're saying, and I know that there's much truth to what it is that you're saying. I have to tell my students, and I'm usually talking about those long terms of elected Black officials who go to Congress and they stay there for literally decades. Charlie Rangel just left, and most people are shocked. Do you know who Charlie Rangel replaced?
Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
Adam Clayton Powell Jr. I mean, really think about that. Okay, he replaced Adam Clayton Powell Jr. and he just left. I say that to say this, that I don't think that this latest generation has the reverence that other generations that preceded them for old guard Black leadership. I don't think they have that anymore. And I believe that, where you see friction, I see a smooth transition, because they're going to be talking on social media and forming these movements that way. Jesse Jackson, I bet you Jesse Jackson don't even know the internet exists. I bet you he don't. Okay. And it's one of those things where they're just going to be, he's irrelevant. Okay. And if Reverend Al was not on MSNBC, he'd be irrelevant. These kids are they reminded me very much of the Black Power generation, where you had this insurgent group of quote unquote, and I hate to use this term, Black militants who rose up. And Huey P. Newton was not dealing with Martin Luther King. Okay, and Lord knows Eldridge Cleaver wasn't going to deal with him. Okay, so, but with that ability to reach the masses, it comes with a danger. The question becomes, are they informed enough to be able to do that? Or is access going to be so readily available that they're going to make numerous mistakes that could have been avoided? Of course, if they would honor and respect what other people have written. But I have, I deal with young people on a literally a daily basis, and I have tremendous faith in them. And, I see some mistakes that they're making ideologically, but at the same time, they're out there and they're running with it, and they're courageous. They're not going to make this, they're not going to be hampered by cowardice. They're going to go out there And they're gonna get their head busted every once in a while, but they're gonna be in the fight. And one of the things that you can say for sure is that regardless of how you feel about Black Lives Matter, regardless of any of these movements that we've seen rise up, you can nitpick, you can split hairs and what have you. But one thing is for sure, you got to deal with them. That there's no one in this nation that doesn't know the phraseology of Black Lives Matter. So you know you done been in a fight. You wanted a fight, you got to fight. And I yield with that. Floor is open.
You know, go ahead, Brother Muhammad.
No, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. What I wanted to say is that,
Hold on one second. Brother Muhammad, did you just point towards her square? Like she's physically somewhere near you?
Yep. Yep.
Like we're playing Hollywood Squares or something. Go right ahead, Sister Vernell.
And it felt like he was pointing right at me, and I'm like, okay, like, and that to me did not seem odd at all. That did not seem odd at all. So I'm with you. I'm the same person that waves goodbye at the end of the Zoom. So that's me. But what I wanted to say is that, like, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, that is definitely a younger generation. But at the same time, the kind of like protests that we've seen happening, you know, my city was full of protests last summer. That kind of protesting, that's a young person's thing. You know, that's a young person's activity. You know, when you look back like at the civil rights movement, those leaders weren't old. Those leaders were young. You know, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, you know, all the other, they were young people, younger people. You know, they weren't 40 and 50 years old, you know. But what I'm seeing is, and what energizes me is that this movement is not waiting for permission. You know, not waiting. Oh my goodness, she's so cute. Not waiting for permission at all, you know, to do what they feel like needs to be done, to respond in a way that they feel like it needs to respond. And I like that. You don't need that. They don't need to ask for permission from anybody, not the establishment. They're not asking for permission from older generations. You know, I'm hearing criticisms because the Black church doesn't appear to be involved as it was involved, like during the civil rights movements in the 60s and whatnot. They didn't have to ask permission from the Black church, you know, to get this, you know, engine going. And I like that about them. You know, there is a sense of boldness that this country hasn't seen in a long time, you know, out of, you know, Black voices. And I think that it is really refreshing, you know, but the thing that does concern me is that while there are new, bold voices not asking for permission, they are still dealing with that same white supremacist system that our ancestors dealt with. It comes from the same source, you know, and without that level of understanding that may be held in an older generation, they could end up doomed to repeating the same mistakes that have been done in previous movements in the past, without that level of understanding of how this white supremacist system is working and how very much it is designed to protect itself. You know, and where you think you're making gains in one area, it will rear its ugly head in another area. And so that part of it does concern me, you know, that I hope that the multi-generations are open to listening to each other, because it's not just about that older generation just telling them something and telling them what to do, but they have had some definite experiences that older generations didn't have, because those spaces and places didn't even exist 50 years ago, you know. And so that both generations, all the multiple generations, will be open to listening to each other.
Thank you for that, Sister Vernell. Before we go to Brother Muhammad, I've seen Brother Patrick shaking his head up and down. I think he's on the verge of having a hallelujah, amen moment. there for a second. Brother Muhammad, jump right on in.
Those were
Yes,
just
yes, thank you, Doc.
like to say.
I definitely agree that the internet opens it up to a different world, because with me being on the internet and being able to say the things I say and do the things I need to do, we went to my first time speaking in New York, and I didn't do no promotion or nothing like that. Somebody was having an event, but they put me on there as a headliner. And when I got there, the room was all packed, and they were packed to see me. And it was shocking. It was real shocking. But they all came because they watched my videos or listened to us on the radio. And they actually thought I was an older type person. Oh, you one of us. But so the message gets out there, and our people will listen to it and begin to vibrate with it, and they'll follow. They'll follow no matter you go on Blog Talk, you on YouTube, you on Facebook, and they'll search that message out, because what they find in you is that genuineness that they can relate to, that realness that they can relate to. And then you're not afraid to say what they think. You're not afraid to be there. You're not afraid, to be that bold and to speak it and to show that you do it, to show that you do it. I was at me and wife were, I think maybe about a year or two ago, we were at the Martin Luther King Museum in Memphis. And the lady that Sister Vernell talked about, she was over there. We took pictures with her. And I went over in front of the museum and I started speaking as wife was recording, and white people was around and they were doing their little celebrating. And, the things that I said on the tape, I'm quite sure it caught them by surprise, but, that was a man's death. But for them, it's more of a celebration. It's more of a celebration, that, yeah, we got this nigga. And so our people are demanding realness. And if you can show it, then they gonna follow. Just like Kwame Brown, come out of nowhere on the internet, blah, blah, blah. And the stuff he was saying sports-wise was correct. And, he go live now, he'll have 20 to 30,000 people watching him, a lot of them Black people, and they're, urging him on to go against Stephen Jones and all this. But then he stepped out of his lane and started getting into politics where he had no business, because he's not where he needs to be. And he started advising Black people to start listening to Candace Owens and respect Candace Owens. And, he started getting in trouble. I mean, even I did a video on that we don't do that. We don't do that. So, he made those mistakes, and hopefully, he can recover and understand that was an error, that he shouldn't have said that, instead of continue going down the wrong road, because he went up like a light because he was right. And then he stepped into the lanes that he was not qualified to be in and begin to take those hits. So hopefully the brother will be able to balance and come right back out. But you gotta know what you're talking about.
All right, thank you.
Research.
Thank you for that, Brother Muhammad. We have reached the end of our program tonight. And what we usually do here is we go ahead and close out. But I'd like to divert from that before we close out and provide our guests. Brother Patrick, this is your first time visiting with us. You are definitely welcome here anytime that you want to come in here and join in within our intellectual community. Hopefully you've had an enjoyable, intellectually stimulating time. And we would like to bestow upon you the honor of going ahead and giving some closing comments before we go to Brother Muhammad, who closes us out. And please don't leave before you hear our unique way of saying goodbye. And as you can see, Sister Regina laughing right now, Sister Vernell laughing. You probably never experienced anything like this. So last comment to you, my brother.
I would just like to say the sum total of who we are as a collective group of people is not about where we are or where we're going. It's about the places that we've been and the many lives that our ancestors have fought to live.
Thank you for that, my brother. Thank you. Thank you once again. You're welcome here anytime, man. Kick your shoes off, make yourself at home.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not a bad bunch after all. We're an eclectic group. Okay, as you can see, we have children who appear on camera. Sister Regina's child has now appeared on camera, and usually there is a person who arrives grossly late. It's usually Brother Carlton or Brother Damon or Vernell, but we won't harbor that point for very long. So, Brother Muhammad, go ahead and close us out. And once again, Brother Patrick, enjoy.
All right, peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you. Excellent program. As we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Love you all. Love you all.